Hello, and welcome back to the Basic Bible Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Thompson, and to my left, as always, in every way,
Sometimes
shape,
I'm
or
to your
form,
right.
sometimes, the one and only Ray Jewell. Wait, wow. Ray, welcome back.
It's good to be back, Kevin. I always enjoy our times together.
All right. I hope that'll be true of this one as well.
Yeah, we'll find out.
We don't have a lot of time here, but we're going to try to squeeze an episode in here. I've got dinner. I've got ribs waiting.
Yeah,
So,
but this was recorded in January or in December, and it's not being played until February.
that's true.
You're going to make people water their mouth and expect to come to your place and find ribs.
Well, I wasn't inviting everybody over.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, all right, let's jump in. So, we started this last week, things not to say to your pastor. And so, we're going to continue that series here this week and probably another week as well.
Oh, at least.
All right, so here we go. Hey, Pastor, I'm going to send you a link to insert name of hip celebrity internet preacher here. You should listen to him. The Lord is really using him. Or the alternative version of giving you a copy of the celebrity preacher's book and then having them ask you every time they see you after that if you've read it. So, and by the way, these are statements, in case you didn't join us last week. These are all statements that actual pastors have actually had said to them. So, yeah, you should really listen to, and whether it's Stephen Furtick or whoever,
Or your friend and mine, the heretic in Dallas. What? All of a sudden.
Oh, Joel Osteen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that happen to me.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta read Joel's stuff, man. Why would I want to waste my time?
Yeah, I mean, it's one year for Pastor Appreciation Month, I gave my pastor Phil it was like a Darth Vader coffee mug or something. He thought, his first reaction is, "Thanks for not giving me a book." I think he expected that from.
Well,
for
that's
good
because
reason.
that's what you always expect from others.
Yeah. Where is my?
I gave you one once
Yes, you did. On C.S. Lewis.
about
Yeah.
the Chronicles of Narnia.
So anyway, so how do you respond to that? With, hey, you should read this book because God's really using him. And I think kind of the inference there is like, God's not using you. Read this book, and so you can
become
get
better.
Yeah. We want you to be just like him.
Well, I think every pastor should have a blowtorch in their office. Depending on who it is. If someone wants to gift me with N.T. Wright stuff, yeah, I'll take that because he is better than I am. And you've got your favorites.
Yeah.
I'm sure if somebody offered you something by R.C. Sproul or some of the other better-known ones.
Sproul or Piper or...
Well, okay, you can have the Piper.
I'll
If anybody gives me Piper,
I don't
that'll
know.
be the gift.
Piper said some things recently, some quotes of...
He has said some things recently that I agree with.
Wow.
Yeah.
But he's also said some things that concern me.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that later. But anyway, but I think the problem is the inference is you need to.
Well, because this guy's a celebrity.
Yeah.
He's on TV all the time, or she is on TV all the time. Therefore, they have a much bigger audience. And look at the success. Well, okay. How do you measure success when it comes to Scripture?
Right.
Well, let's see. From what I can gather, it's all about faithfulness to God.
Yeah.
Not faithfulness to myself, not faithfulness to anything else, but being a humble servant of the Lord, of Jesus Christ. Because we are to emulate him. Philippians 2 is all about, to basically take on the form of a servant as Jesus did. A great doxology there, going through everything that Jesus did. He emptied himself and became a human. He was very humble in that. I mean, more humble than any of us as humans will ever be because of sin. But the thing is, Jesus measures success by humble service and faithfulness to his word and to what he has called us to do. Not by the pizzazz, not by the crowds.
Right.
He shunned crowds, even though he had tons of people
Yeah.
come to him, but they were coming to him for the wrong reasons. When he fed 5,000, next time we see these people coming, well, you're just here because I fed you. You're not here because you listened to what I had to say. You're just here because I filled your belly.
Yep.
And he really had issues with that. And so I have issues with anybody telling me or thinking that I need to listen to a certain guy or a certain woman because they're doing it, because they're successful.
But you did mention, I mean, there are people who are doing it right, whether it's NT Wright or, on my side, whether I'm reading a book by MacArthur or one of those guys. You have to remember these guys, these big names. It's not that I'm not to say they have it easy, but I don't have a research staff. Like these guys do.
Yeah.
I don't have 1,000 pastors working under me.
Yeah.
That can do some of the other works of ministry, so I can focus on whatever. So it's sometimes it's just not a fair evaluation.
Well, it's not even sometimes. Most of the time, it's not a fair. It's not being true to your local church and to the pastor that church has brought in to do what he's supposed to, or she's supposed to be doing. And like you said earlier, it's to train others for works of service, for ministry purposes. And if that's not happening, then I'd be concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, to be elsewhere, knowledge will cease and all these other things, but love will be there. And if the pastor is not loving on the people that are there, and that includes being tough with them sometimes, then he's not being very, very faithful and or successful as I understand the Bible to describe what success is.
And there are times where, maybe your pastor would benefit from a book that you've got. But ask him about it every other time you see him.
Right.
Remember, your pastor's a busy guy. Your pastor's got other books he's reading as well. And he may not get to it right away. So,
well, and he's got a sermon to write, and sometimes, a midweek service. Or a Bible study, or 2 or 3 Bible studies. And, back to that, what we talked about last week. Got to go visit people in the hospital. He's got to be an active person in the community. Got to help run things,
And depending on the size of your church, he could be your janitor, as far as you know.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, or at least the one that comes and opens the place and closes the place, so he's always the first one there and the last one to leave. There's something wrong with that
Not
mentality.
to mention the family.
Well, right. I mean, what about they live in an ice bowl, or fish bowl.
You said ice bowl?
I did.
Wow.
I'm a Packer fan, okay? But a fish bowl, everybody knows what's going on. Or at least they think they should be allowed to know, because we're all your boss. We pay your salary. I mean, no. It's your parsonage, yes, which is why I would never, ever go into full-time ministry again, because unless they had a stipend for housing, twice, I was asked to leave a church. Not only was I out of a job, I was out of a home. Twice. Now, some of that might have been warranted, probably was warranted, but just the attitude, you got to get out. You got a month to get out.
Yeah.
And you got a month to go find another place to live and to work.
Right.
Some people think they're being generous by giving them a month. Now, some people, a little word for you pastors out there. When you talk with a church that you might become a part of as one of their leadership people, make sure you do your due diligence and have an exit strategy in place before you take on the position. By that, 6-month severance pay or whatever. But, and other things, there's tons of literature about this out there. So you got to do that. it protects you, it protects your family, and frankly, it protects the church.
All right, let's move on to a different one
Sorry.
here. We're getting off topic here. All right.
You knew it was going to happen.
Okay, here's one. You're on vacation next Sunday. That's kind of like a bye week for us, right? In other words, pastor's gone. I don't need to be at church.
I can
take that
be. Oh, I hate that one too because, well, I mean, you're paying somebody to come in if it's a smaller church and it's a supply situation. Be there because this is not about a popularity contest with my pastor. It's about you're there to worship God.
Yeah.
And if you're there to be entertained or even be, quote unquote, fed in a certain way, and you say, well, you're on vacation, so I'm going to stay home. That's just not right.
Yeah. And you've always emphasized the idea that the pastor is not the church. The church is not the pastor. The church has to be much more than that one guy.
Yeah.
Your pastor does need a break. He does need to take a break on Sunday for once in a while. But your need for spiritual growth and your need for spiritual nourishment doesn't change.
Right.
And again, it's not about your pastor, no matter how good he is. It's not like, again, as a teacher, I when I have a substitute come in for me, especially, Ray, if I use you, I'm not just, this isn't like giving you babysitting work just to keep them busy.
Right.
I expect the lesson to continue, the work to go on, so I don't have a whole bunch to do when I get back. So if you're pastor, and I've done a lot of pulpit supply, and you've got one coming up here pretty soon.
But it'll be before
yes,
this airs.
It will have been past tense by the time this airs. But I've done a lot of pulpit supply, and coming in, just because I'm not your pastor doesn't mean I still haven't put in time and energy into this message. It's still the Word of God, no matter who's preaching.
Right.
And so this
even
is a message,
if you use one you've used somewhere else before, you
right.
still put the time and effort into it, and you don't just warm it over. You look at it again and
right.
do some
Always
tweaking
rework
to
it
and rework it, and you try to make it. If you have any clue at all where you're walking into and who's there, then like the one that I've got coming up, it's going to be older people, probably at least my age and not older. So I can take something maybe that I used at Rock County Christian Chapel, but I'd have to change some of the illustrations or whatever to make it resonate more with that age and that experience.
And that's the key word of the day, by the way, is resonate. Of the interviews I've done today, Dayton used that word quite a bit.
Did he really?
He originally used the word vibing. He said, no, that doesn't sound Christian. So we switched to resonate.
What's the word?
Vibing.
Oh, vibing.
So, you hit on the key word of the day.
Yeah, well, okay, he doesn't go to Resonate Church.
No, he doesn't. No.
But Davila does.
Yeah, Tim Davila does. And the pastor at Resonate's been on Jesse. Pastor Jesse Biernick has been on this podcast.
Their kids are in Rock County? At least
some of
them are?
No, they're
not anymore?
Not anymore. They've gone over to the enemy. They're at Oak Hill. That's the enemy.
Closer to them.
That doesn't matter. You travel for quality education. Anyway, sorry, Jesse.
School wars instead of worship wars. We've got school.
All right, let's move on. Okay. This pastor says, all right, this is a conversation he's been in. Me, I could use some help with this because it's taking up a lot of my time. Some non-ministry issues, say like talking with claims adjusters. Board member, you're the pastor. You do it. Me, can I have a couple of weeks off of preaching to focus on or take a ministry class? Board member, all of us work and have families. Why should you get time off to take a class? So, again, overburdening the pastor, I think, is the idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why would you want a pastor whose training more than likely has not been in business administration or church administration, more than likely it's in biblical studies, theology, even how to do spiritual things. Why would you want that person to be in charge of any claims adjustment? I mean, it would be a fiasco if someone asked me to do that, and I don't have a clue about insurance.
God hasn't gifted everybody in the same way.
Yeah. I mean, there should be somebody on the board or whatever governing body you have, like a treasurer or somebody that, even a financial guru of some kind, who knows how to handle those things and is willing, as part of their ministry, to do. A pastor should never have to do that.
Yeah,
never.
Your pastor isn't a jack of all trades. Isn't an expert in every field, and you wouldn't want him to be.
No.
What does it say? The jack of all trades, an expert in none.
Right.
You want him to be an expert in the area of the scriptures, of ministry, and things like that. You don't want him to have to take time to do some of these other things. In fact, that's the whole. When you look at the Book of Acts, the introduction of deacons, because there was a serious problem, and it wasn't a problem that could just be swept away. It's a problem of widows who weren't being ministered to, weren't having their needs met. And that's a serious thing. But the apostle said, we just don't have time to do that. We are committed to the ministry of the word. We don't have time to wait tables. And again, that wasn't saying that it was like beneath them.
No.
But it was just something they couldn't do. And so they created the office of deacon to meet that need. And so there are people in the church who should
we
be
would disagree on that whole concept of office of deacon. The word means, diakonos means servant.
Sure.
And the interesting thing about it, who was the first martyr for Christianity? Stephen, who was one of those 7 that was chosen.
Right.
So he was not just waiting on tables; he was out evangelizing and preaching the gospel, and he got killed for it.
Yeah.
I mean, so being a Christian, I'm sorry, I'm getting tired of the word because it's become such a bitter taste in my mouth. A follower of Jesus, okay? Being a follower of Jesus means putting our lives on the line day in and day out. Not just the pastor. Don't expect the pastor to drive himself or herself into a grave by overwork. This is a shared thing that we are called to. God has gifted us in so many different ways, and the whole body, not an individual person. If all the spiritual gifts were wrapped up in one person, might as well call him Jesus, because that's who had them all. But that's why we have the body imagery in Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12, other places, Ephesians 4, where we are all ministers, we are all servants, we are all called to do something, and it's that giftedness that is our calling.
Yeah. So, all right, let's squeeze in one more here, because I've got to run. In fact, I shouldn't be doing anything.
I didn't know you were running anywhere.
Yeah, I'm not going to be running for a while. But why haven't you reached out to our former members? We need to reach out and contact them. Now, in this particular instance, the pastor said the contact's former members left, publicly said they did not want to come back to the church and leave them alone. But this is something I remember in ministry. Why haven't you reached out to so and so and so and so? But I found, at least I'm thinking of a particular instance right now, where, listen, as a pastor, I know what's going on in that situation. Trust me. They've left, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But there are other things, as we just mentioned before, it's just like visiting people in the church. You think they should be visited? Go
for it. Yeah. If you are that concerned about their welfare, why are you coming to me about that as a pastor? Because you have a better connection with them, obviously. Right. I mean, I can do hospital calls. I can do that kind of calling. I can go visit people. But why aren't you doing it? Because you've been here 30, 40, 50 years. I've only been here for 2. Yeah. And you know these people. And if you're that concerned about them, go ask them.
Yeah, if God's burdened your heart for it, why shouldn't you do it?
Exactly. Yeah. Why do you... I mean, there's really not a whole lot of special training that we get in seminary on how to do that.
Although there probably should.
Well,
but every person is different. But some basic principles would probably be a good idea.
Well, yeah, some conflict management and stuff.
Yeah.
I had some of that in leadership courses, but still, I don't. When a pastor comes in from another location, it's ridiculous to think that they're going to have everybody's name down and know where everything is within the first 6 months.
Yeah.
You got to give them at least a year just to get settled. That's one of the main reasons why I am all for churches developing pastors and putting people on their staff from inside.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, the negative to that is they may not get the theological training that they need. But as far as knowing the people, that's huge. And that, but yeah, go ask them yourself.
All right, and on that note, we're going to wrap up this week because, again, I have ribs waiting. But again, our recommended resources for this series, maybe we'll add to this later, but it has become a series now. We're not even close to being finished. The One Sentence Pastors Hate to Hear, an article by Thom Rainer. We'll link to that in our show notes. And we're going to continue this series at a different time. So join us back next week. We'll probably be into part 3 of this series. Special thanks to Anna Jewell for being Ray's chauffeur this week.
Yes.
And our live studio audience. She's managed to keep her composure, managed to keep things under control, no wild cheering or booing or throwing anything, so that's always a plus. So check us out, www.basicbiblepodcast.org, and then on social media at Basic Biblecast on Instagram and Twitter. Check out the Facebook page, join that group. So until next week, have a great rest of your